something just happened behind the scenes, and the internet is still trying to catch up. Because what started as a quiet whisper in private group chats has now exploded into one of the most shocking, uncomfortable, and downright chaotic celebrity situations we've seen in a long time. And at the center of it all, Boosie and King Harris. Now listen closely, because this isn't just another internet rumor you scroll past and forget. This is the kind of story that starts off sounding crazy, and then gets worse the more you look into it. Late last night, multiple insiders began hinting that a piece of footage, something people were never supposed to see, had been circulating in certain circles for weeks. Not public, not viral, just quietly passed around between people who knew too much. But then, everything changed. Because according to sources, Boosie somehow got his hands on that footage. And instead of keeping it behind the scenes, he allegedly made the decision that nobody expected. He let it out. And the moment it started spreading, things went left immediately. At first, people thought it was fake. You know how the internet is. AI edits, clout chasers, fake leaks. Nobody took it seriously. But then reactions started pouring in. Not jokes, not memes. Panic. People deleting posts. Pages going silent. Certain accounts that were talking about it suddenly wiped everything like it never existed. And that's when folks started realizing this might actually be real. And the biggest reaction of all, T.I., because insiders are claiming the second he found out what was being shared, something in him just snapped. Now we're talking about a complete meltdown behind closed doors. Raised voices. Emergency phone calls. People being warned to stay out of it. And one source even said he wasn't just angry, he was shaking. Like this hit deeper than anything before. Now think about that for a second. This is a man who has handled scandals, legal battles, public drama, all without losing control like this. So what made this different? Why did this situation push him to the edge? And more importantly, what exactly is in that footage that has everyone moving like they've seen something they were never supposed to see? Because here's where it gets even crazier. Some people are now saying this wasn't random at all. They're claiming Boosie didn't just leak something. He exposed something. Something that had been whispered about for a long time, but never proven. And if that's true, then this isn't just drama anymore. This is a full-blown situation that could change how people look at T.Y.'s entire family. So, don't go anywhere. Because once we break down how this all started, and the history between these people, you're going to realize this explosion didn't come out of nowhere. It was building up for a long, long time. Now, to really understand why this situation didn't just blow up, but absolutely erupted, you have to look deeper than just this one moment. Because this didn't start with a leak. It didn't even start with Boosie. This has been building for years. Let's start with T.I. For a long time, he's carefully crafted this image. Not just as a rapper, but as a leader, a father, like a man who runs his household with discipline and control. He's always presented himself as someone who stands on principles, structure, and respect. And if you've followed him for even a little while, you already know. Family has always been at the center of everything he does. But here's the thing. When you build an image that strong, that controlled, that polished, any crack looks 10 times worse. And that's exactly what people have been noticing lately, because over the past few years, King Harris hasn't exactly followed the quiet, disciplined path his father always preached. In fact, it's been the complete opposite. From viral videos of him arguing with his parents, to public moments where he openly challenged authority, to social media clips where fans started questioning his behavior, King has been slowly becoming one of the most talked about celebrity kids online, and not always for the right reasons. And let's be real. Every time something happened, T.I. stepped in. Sometimes calmly, sometimes aggressively, but always trying to control the narrative. There were moments where T.I. went on live streams, interviews, even podcasts, defending his son, explaining his actions, trying to frame everything as misunderstood or out of context. But the internet, it wasn't buying it, because people were starting to notice a pattern. Every time King Harris went viral, there was always something just a little off, a little too emotional, and a little too chaotic, a little too unpredictable. And behind the scenes, according to so-called insiders, things weren't nearly as calm as T.I. made them look. There were whispers of arguments inside the household, tension between family members, moments where things allegedly got heated, loud, even explosive. But none of that ever fully came out. Why? Because T.I. is very good at keeping things contained. Or at least, he was. Now let's bring Boosie into this, because this is where things start getting interesting. Boosie has never been the type to stay quiet. If he feels something, he says it. If he sees something, he reacts. And over the years, he's built a reputation for speaking on situations that other people are too afraid to touch. Which means when his name gets connected to something like this, like you already know it's not going to stay quiet for long. Now here's what people are starting to piece together. There have been subtle tensions between T.I. and Boosie for a while now. Nothing huge at first, just small comments, side remarks, moments where one would say something and the other would respond indirectly, but then things started getting a little more direct, a little more personal. And according to some online detectives, yeah, people really went deep into this. There were moments where Boosie allegedly hinted at knowing things about T.I.'s circle. Things he never fully said out loud. At the time, nobody took it seriously. It just sounded like typical celebrity talk. But now, people are going back to those clips, those posts, those interviews, and they're starting to connect dots. Now, because what if those weren't just random comments? What if those were warnings? Now think about the timing. Right when King Harris starts becoming more visible online, right when his behavior starts getting more attention, right when people begin questioning things, suddenly this footage appears, and not just anywhere, but in the hands of someone like Boosie? That's not random, at least that's what people are saying. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Because some so-called sources close to the situation are claiming that the footage didn't just randomly surface recently. They're saying it's been around, quietly, hidden, passed between certain people who were in the know. But it never went public. Why? Because crossing someone like T.I.? That comes with consequences. So for a long time, nobody touched it. Until now. Until Boosie. And if that's true, then this wasn't just a leak. This was a decision. A calculated move. And the moment it happened, everything changed. Because once something like that gets out, you can't control it anymore. You can't contain it. You can't spin it. And for someone like T.I. who built his entire reputation on control, that's the worst possible situation to be in. Now add King Harris into the middle of all this. A young man already dealing with public pressure. Already facing criticism. Already trying to figure out his identity under a spotlight that never turns off. And suddenly, he's at the center of one of the most talked about leaks online. You don't think that changes everything? You don't think that creates pressure, tension, fear? Because according to whispers online, King didn't even know this was coming. Peaked, and when it hit fast. No warning, no time to prepare. Just instant chaos. And while the internet was trying to figure out what was real, what was fake, what was edited, one thing became very clear behind the scenes. I was not prepared for this. And that's exactly why his reaction was so extreme. Because this wasn't just about protecting an image anymore, and this was about protecting something much deeper. Something personal. Something that, if exposed the wrong way, could change everything people think they know about his family. And that brings us to the moment where everything finally exploded. Because what happened next wasn't just a leak, it was a full-blown confrontation waiting to happen. And when it did, let's just say, nobody walked away from it the same. And this is where everything completely spiraled out of control. Because up until this point, it was all whispers, speculation, and quiet panic behind the scenes. But then, the footage didn't just stay hidden anymore, it started moving. According to multiple so-called insiders, the clip first reappeared in a private Telegram group late at night. One of those invite-only spaces where people trade exclusive content that never touches the public timeline. At first, it was dropped without context, no caption, no explanation, just a short video file. And for a few minutes, nothing happened. People watched it, confused. Some thought it was fake. Some thought it was edited. But then one user allegedly typed just 6 words that changed everything. "Yo, that's King, look closer." And that's when the room shifted, because suddenly, people weren't just watching casually anymore. They were analyzing, zooming in, replaying, comparing faces, voices, movements. And within minutes, screenshots started circulating inside that private group. Side-by-side comparisons of King Harris from recent Instagram lives matched against the person in the clip. Now here's the scary part. The more people looked, the quieter the chat became. Not louder, not chaotic. Quiet. Because according to one insider, when something is fake, people joke. When it might be real, people go silent. And that silence didn't last long because somehow, nobody knows exactly who did it, the video got out. It jumped from that private group to a smaller Discord server, then to a burner Twitter account. And from there, it started spreading like wildfire. But here's where things take a turn nobody expected. Because just as people were starting to talk about it publicly, the original posts started disappearing. Deleted, removed, accounts going private, and not slowly either. Fast, like someone was actively trying to shut it down. Now think about that for a second. If it was fake, why panic? Why delete? Why scramble? That's when people started asking the real question. Who's trying to control this? And that's when T.I.'s name started getting thrown around heavy. Because according to multiple sources close to the situation, the moment the footage hit public spaces, T.I. found out, and everything changed instantly. We're talking about an immediate, aggressive response behind the scenes. Phones ringing nonstop, people being contacted, one of certain individuals allegedly being told to take it down now, and one insider even claimed there was a list of people who had the video and they were being tracked. Now, whether that's true or not, nobody can fully confirm, but what we do know is this. Within hours of the footage going public, a lot of people who posted it stopped completely. No explanation, no follow-up. Just silence. And that's when things got even more intense. Because while all of this was happening behind the scenes, Boosie decided to step into it. Not quietly, not indirectly, but loudly. According to viral clips that started circulating right after the leak, Boosie allegedly went on a late-night live stream where he didn't name names at first. But he didn't have to. Because the way he was talking, everybody knew exactly what he was referring to. Yeah, he said things like, "Some of y'all be acting one way in public, and a whole different way when cameras ain't supposed to be on." And then he paused, smiled, and added, "Truth always come out, one way or another." Now that right there, that's when the internet lost it. Because people started connecting everything instantly. The footage, the leak, the timing. And now Boosie basically hinting that he knew more than he was saying. And here's where the first major twist drops. Because according to multiple online threads that blew up overnight, Boosie didn't just react to the footage, he allegedly had it before it leaked. Yeah, let that sink in. People started digging into timestamps, repost patterns, and private messages, and some are claiming that Boosie had access to that clip days before it ever surfaced publicly. Or which means this wasn't just a random reaction, this was involvement. And if that's true, then everything changes. Because now the question isn't just what was leaked, it's why did Boosie release it now? Was it personal? Was it retaliation? Was it something deeper? And that's when the situation turned from messy to straight up explosive. Because according to one source who claims to be close to T.Y.'s circle, the moment T.I. saw Boosie speaking on it publicly, that's when he snapped. Not upset, not frustrated. Snapped. We're talking about shouting, objects being thrown, people around him trying to calm him down, and failing. And one alleged witness said something that stuck with everyone. He kept saying he crossed a line. He crossed a line he can't come back from. Now that right there, that's not about a rumor. And that's not about gossip. That sounds personal. Deeply personal. And it didn't stop there. Because just hours after Boosie's live stream started going viral, a series of cryptic messages began appearing online, posts that many believe were connected to T.I.'s camp. Things like, some things ain't meant for the internet. Certain people gonna regret playing with family. Respect boundaries or face consequences. Now, none of these were directly linked to T.I., no official account, no clear confirmation. But the timing, way too close to ignore. And fans picked up on it immediately because suddenly the conversation shifted. It wasn't just about the footage anymore, it was about WAR. People started asking, is this about to turn into a full-blown feud? Is T.I. going to respond publicly? Is Boosie going to double down? And what about King Harris? Because in the middle of all of this chaos, he went silent. No posts, no stories, no responses. Just gone. And that silence made everything feel even heavier. Because now people weren't just speculating about the footage. They were worried about what was happening behind closed doors. What conversations were being had. What pressure was building. What decisions were being made. And then, right when things couldn't get any more intense, another twist dropped. A smaller clip, allegedly connected to the same situation, started circulating in even tighter circles. Not public yet, not viral, but enough people saw it to start whispering about something new. Something that made the original footage look like just the beginning. And according to those whispers, if that clip gets out, this situation won't just be messy. It'll be unstoppable. So now the real question is, what else is out there? What hasn't been seen yet? And how far is this about to go? Because if you thought the first leak was shocking, you have no idea what might be coming next. Just when people thought the situation had already reached its peak, it got worse. Way worse. Because what happened next didn't just add fuel to the fire, it poured gasoline on it. Overnight, the story exploded beyond private chats and niche pages and landed directly into mainstream social media chaos. TikTok clips started popping up with blurred screenshots. Twitter threads began dissecting every frame of the alleged footage, and Instagram blogs, some with millions of followers, started hinting at a major celebrity family crisis unfolding in real time. And suddenly, this wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was a full-blown internet event. But here's where things took a turn nobody saw coming. Because instead of going silent, Boosie came back. And this time, he wasn't hinting. He wasn't being subtle. He leaned all the way in. According to multiple viral reposts, Boosie allegedly jumped back online. This time with a tone that people described as reckless, unfiltered, and way too comfortable. He reportedly said things like, "Ain't nobody untouchable. I don't care who you is." And then dropped a line that had the entire internet pausing. Stop acting shocked when the truth finally hit the light. Now that right there, that didn't sound like someone backing off. That sounded like someone doubling down. And the reaction? Immediate. Within minutes, hashtags started trending. Debates erupted. People split into two sides almost instantly. One side saying, "Boosie wrong for this. That's somebody's son." The other side saying, "Nah, if it's real, it's real. Stop protecting celebrities." And just like that, the internet turned into a battlefield. But while all of this chaos was happening publicly, something even more intense was unfolding behind the scenes. Because according to insiders, again, take this how you want. T, I wasn't just reacting emotionally anymore. He was taking action. There were whispers of emergency meetings, phone calls to legal teams, conversations about damage control, and even talk of identifying exactly who originally leaked the footage in the first place. But here's the part that made people uneasy. Because allegedly, it wasn't just about stopping the video anymore. It was about finding out who else had copies, who else knew, who else might speak. And that's when things started feeling less like drama, and more like a situation spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, fans began noticing something else. Something subtle, but powerful. Certain influencer pages that had posted about the footage suddenly switched up, deleted posts, changed captions, started saying things like unconfirmed, alleged, fake rumors, and people caught it. Because the same pages that were pushing the story earlier were now backing off. Fast. And the internet noticed immediately. Comments flooded in. Why y'all deleting stuff now? Who told y'all to take it down? Something not adding up. And just like that, the focus shifted again. Because now it wasn't just about the footage, it was about control. Who's controlling the narrative? Who's silencing people? And what are they trying to hide? But then, the biggest twist of this entire situation dropped. And it didn't come from Boosie. It didn't come from T.I., it came from an anonymous account. A brand new page, no followers, no history, no profile picture, and one post, just one. A message that read, "Y'all think that clip bad? That ain't even the full story. There's a longer version, and trust me, if that drops, it's over." That's it. No proof, no video, just that message. And somehow, it shook everything because within minutes that post was screenshotted, came reposted, shared across platforms. People started panicking again. Not joking, not trolling. Panic? Because now the narrative changed again. Now it wasn't just, what did we see? It was, what haven't we seen yet? And suddenly, all eyes went back to Boosie. Because people started asking, does he have the full version? Is that why he's so confident? Is that why he's not backing down? And at the same time, attention shifted back to T.I. because now the question became even more intense. If there is more footage, how far is he willing to go to stop it from coming out? And this is where things reached a level nobody expected. Because according to one alleged insider, again, take it as you will, there was a moment where T.I. reportedly said something that left everyone around him stunned. One of the source claims he said, "This ain't just about the internet anymore. This is bigger than that." Now, what does that mean? Nobody knows for sure, but the way it was described, it didn't sound like someone talking about a simple rumor. It sounded like someone realizing they were losing control of something much bigger. And while all of this was happening, King Harris, still silent. No response, no denial, no explanation. And that silence started to speak louder than anything else, because fans began reading into it, some saying, he's overwhelmed. Others saying, he's being told to stay quiet. And some even saying, that silence means something. And just like that, the pressure kept building, higher, heavier, more intense. Because now this wasn't just a viral moment anymore. This was a ticking time bomb, with multiple sides, multiple secrets, and potentially more footage waiting to drop. So the real question now is, who's going to make the next move? Boosie? T.I.? Or whoever's sitting on that longer version everyone's suddenly terrified of? Because one thing is clear. This situation isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. And if another piece drops, there might be no coming back from it. Not for Boosie, not for T.I., and definitely not for King Harris. And this is where everything truly went out of control. Because once the story escaped private circles and fully hit the public timeline, there was no stopping it. Within hours, every major blog page, gossip account, and reaction channel was talking about it. Some directly, some indirectly, some just dropping cryptic hints that had people digging even deeper. Twitter, well, X completely exploded. We're talking about trending topics, thousands of posts per minute, people arguing, debating, picking sides like it was some kind of online war. One viral tweet read, "Y'all really watching a father go through this and still laughing? This ain't entertainment. This is somebody's real life." That tweet alone got tens of thousands of likes. But then right under it, another post went just as viral saying, "If Boosie telling the truth, then nobody should be protecting anybody. Truth is truth." And just like that, the internet split into two completely different worlds. On one side, you had people defending TY and King Harris, saying this crossed every line possible. They were calling it invasion of privacy, exploitation, and straight-up disrespect. Comments flooded in like, "This is somebody's child. Hey, y'all need to chill. Why is this even being shared? This is sick. Boosie went too far this time. I don't care what anybody says." But then on the other side, you had people who didn't care about feelings. They cared about truth. They were saying things like, "If it's out there, it's out there. Stop trying to hide stuff." Celebrities think they above everything until something leaks. Don't act shocked now. The internet always finds out. And those comments were just as loud, just as viral, just as aggressive. And that's when the situation stopped being just about the people involved and turned into a full-blown cultural debate. Privacy versus exposure, family versus accountability, loyalty versus truth. And it wasn't just regular fans talking anymore. Celebrities started reacting too. Now, nobody came out directly naming names at first, but the subtweets? Oh, they were loud. One rapper posted, "Some things ain't meant for the internet. Y'all gotta learn boundaries." Another one responded just minutes later, "Boundaries don't exist when you in the spotlight. That's the game." Then a well-known influencer jumped in saying, "This whole situation feel weird. Like everybody moving scared, but nobody saying why." And that line right there set off another wave of speculation. Because people started asking, why does it feel like people are scared to speak directly? What are they afraid of? What do they know that we don't? And then came the reaction that really shook things. Because one industry insider, someone who claims to have connections in Atlanta, posted a thread that went viral overnight. They wrote, "I'm not going to say too much, but what's going on behind the scenes is way bigger than what y'all seeing online. This ain't just about a video. It's about power, control, and secrets people been sitting on for years." Now, whether that's true or not, didn't matter. Because once that idea hit the timeline, everything changed again. Now people weren't just reacting to the footage. They were imagining something bigger, something deeper, something hidden. And that's when conspiracy-level discussions started forming. Threads connecting old interviews, old clips, old rumors that people had forgotten about, suddenly being brought back into the conversation. People were saying, "Go back and watch that interview from last year. Something feels off now. Remember when Boosie said he knew stuff? Y'all thought he was joking." This been brewing for a long time. And just like that, the narrative expanded. It wasn't just about one moment anymore. It was about a timeline, a buildup, a story that people now believe has been unfolding quietly for years. Meanwhile, news-style YouTube channels started jumping on it heavy. Thumbnail after thumbnail with shocked faces, bold captions, dramatic titles. Exposed! Leaked! This changes everything! And every video, adding more speculation, more theories, more fuel to an already out-of-control fire. And in the middle of all this chaos, the silence from the main people involved became even louder. No official statement from T.I., no direct confirmation or denial from Boosie, no response from King Harris. And that silence started frustrating people. And because now the internet wasn't just reacting, it was demanding answers. Comments like, Why nobody's speaking up? If it's fake, say it. If it's real, explain it. Stop hiding. And the pressure kept building, higher, stronger, more intense. Because the longer nobody said anything, the more people believed something bigger was being hidden. And then, right when the situation felt like it couldn't get any more divided, a final wave of reactions pushed everything into even deeper controversy. Because a few high-profile figures, people who usually stay out of drama, started hinting that this situation might not end quietly. One comment that went viral said, "This ain't one of those things that just disappears. This one gonna have consequences." Consequences. That word hit different. And because now people weren't just watching for drama anymore. They were watching for what happens next. Will someone speak out? Will more footage drop? Will this turn into a full public confrontation? Or will everything suddenly go quiet? Like something behind the scenes forced it to? Because at this point, nobody knows what to expect. And that's exactly why this situation feels so dangerous. So unpredictable. So far from over. Because when the entire internet is watching and nobody is talking, that usually means one thing. Something big is about to happen. Just when it felt like the situation had reached its absolute breaking point, when the internet was already divided, exhausted, and desperate for answers. That's when everything flipped again. Because out of nowhere, a new piece of information surfaced. Not a full video. Not a confirmed leak. But something that shook people even more than anything before it. A voice note. Yeah, a voice note. According to multiple accounts that claim to have heard it, this wasn't just any recording. It was allegedly a conversation between two individuals discussing the original footage and what was supposed to happen with it. And here's the part that made people freeze. Because one of the voices, again, this is all alleged, was said to be connected to someone close to the situation. Not Boosie, not T.I., but someone in between. And in that voice note, they allegedly said something that changed everything. This wasn't supposed to get out like this. It was meant to stay leverage. Leverage, that one word, hit the internet like a shockwave. Because now suddenly the narrative wasn't just about exposure, it was about control, about power, about something being held, used, possibly even traded behind the scenes. And if that's true, then this situation is way bigger than anyone thought. Because now people started asking, who originally had this footage? Who was it meant to be used against? And most importantly, who lost control of it? Because think about it. If something is being held as leverage, that means there's a story behind it, a reason it exists, a purpose it was supposed to serve. And the moment it gets out publicly, that purpose is destroyed, which means somebody messed up. Badly. Now here's where things get even darker. Because according to some deep dive threads that popped up shortly after that voice note started circulating, there are claims, again, unconfirmed, that this footage might not even be recent. Some are saying it could be old. Very old. From a time when King Harris was in a completely different phase of his life. And if that turns out to be true, then this situation becomes even more complicated, because now you're not just dealing with a viral moment. You're dealing with something that's been sitting in the shadows for years. Hidden, protected, possibly used as a silent threat. Until now. And that raises an even more uncomfortable question. Who's been sitting on this all this time? And why? Because the more people started thinking about that, the more unsettling everything felt. Meanwhile, attention snapped right back to Boosie. Because people began wondering, if this was meant to be leverage? Did he know? Was he part of that plan? Or did he just disrupt something bigger without even realizing it? And the craziest part? He still hasn't fully explained himself. No clear statement, no denial, no confirmation. Just more cryptic behavior, more indirect comments. More energy that feels like he knows something the rest of us don't. And that silence? combined with everything else, only made things worse. But the biggest shift of all came from T.I., because according to multiple insiders, and again, take this as alleged, his energy completely changed after that voice note surfaced. At first, he was angry, explosive, reactive. But now, people are saying he went quiet. Too quiet, strategic, calculated. And one source claimed, that's when everybody around him got nervous. Because when he stops reacting, that means he's thinking. Now, what does that mean? Nobody knows for sure, but if you've been paying attention, you already understand. Because sometimes, silence is louder than anger. And in situations like this, silence can mean something is coming, something planned, something that could flip the entire narrative again. And then, just when people thought they had processed everything, another rumor started spreading. Not confirmed, not verified, but enough to make people pause. Whispers that there might be a full version of the footage, and that it's being held by someone who hasn't stepped forward yet. Someone watching, waiting, deciding when or if to release it. Now think about that for a second. If what we've seen already caused this much chaos, what happens if something bigger drops? What happens if there's context we haven't seen? What happens if the story changes again? Because at this point, nothing feels stable, nothing feels finished, nothing feels resolved. And that's exactly why this situation is more dangerous than ever. Because it's not just about what's already happened, it's about what might happen next. So now the question is, who makes the next move? Does Boosie finally speak clearly? Does T.I. break his silence? Does King Harris step forward? Or does someone else, someone we haven't even seen yet, drop something that changes everything all over again? Because one thing is certain. This story is nowhere near over. And the next update might be the one that blows everything wide open. Now, at this point, you've seen how deep this situation really goes. And if you've been watching closely from the beginning, then you already know. This isn't just another viral moment that fades away in a few days. Like, this is one of those stories that keeps evolving, keeps twisting, keeps revealing new layers the more people dig into it. And the craziest part? We still don't have all the answers. Not even close. So now I gotta ask you, what do you think is really going on here? Do you believe this was a random leak that just got out of control? Or do you think this was something way more calculated? Something that was being held behind the scenes and finally slipped into the public? And what about Boosie? Was he exposing the truth like some people are saying? Or did he cross a line that should never have been crossed? And T.I., do you think his reaction says everything we need to know? Or do you believe there's something bigger happening behind the scenes that we still haven't seen yet? And then there's King Harris, the one person at the center of all this who hasn't said a single word. Do you think his silence means he's protecting himself? Or does it mean something deeper that people aren't ready to talk about yet? I want you to go down to the comments right now and tell me where you stand. Because this situation, it's dividing everybody. There is no middle ground anymore. You're either on one side or the other. And trust me, the comments on this one are about to get crazy. Also, if you've made it this far, you already know we don't just cover surface-level stories over here. We break everything down, piece by piece, and stay locked in on every update that drops. So make sure you hit that like button right now, because the more this video gets pushed out, the more we can keep bringing you these real-time breakdowns as things unfold. And don't forget to subscribe, because if another clip drops, if someone finally breaks their silence, if that so-called full version ever hits the internet, you already know we're going to be the first to cover it. And trust me, you do not want to miss what might happen next, because something about this situation feels unfinished. Like we're right in the middle of it. And the next twist might be the one that changes everything, so stay ready, stay watching, and I'll catch you in the next update.